Hello, welcome to week 17 of Eden Hope Academy. You should have your supply bags, and you have fake fur, string, marshmallows, and some paper, and you need scissors, and you need a little bit of extra string from the supply box, and you need the colorful plastic needles that are in the supply box. Now, what I want you to do is really concentrate on the story of David and Goliath before you go into making the slingshots. So spend about 10 to 15 minutes talking about it before you go into the actual art. One thing that you might do is you might have two trees up on your whiteboard, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then go through the story of young David. And so basically, David was the youngest of his brothers. He was not respected, and we know that because his dad, when asked by Samuel to show him all of his sons, his dad didn't even call David in from the field. He thought, he's not going to choose David. And so David, we know, was a shepherd. He was out in the fields. That means that he would have spent long periods of time, sometimes months at a time, away from people, away from his family, and he would just be watching his father's sheep. And as a shepherd, he would have to look after the young sheep to make sure that they were being taken care of. If a sheep was prone to go away, then they would break a leg of the sheep, and then he would carry it over his shoulders so that the sheep would bond with him. And as someone who has sheep, I know that sheep are really difficult animals. They kind of stray, they kind of wander, and unless you're really bonded with the sheep, they won't come to you, they won't come when they're called, all of those things that can lead to their safety. David tells us a little bit later that he not only had to kill a bear, but he also had to kill a lion while he was watching his sheep. And you can imagine all of the little things that he had to protect his sheep from as well. So he was an amazing caretaker. So the story goes that one day his dad wanted to check on what was going on with his sons who were in battle with the Philistines. Now, the Philistines were the constant aggravation of the Israelites. They were always coming and poking at the Israelites and wanting to fight them or steal from them or do different things like that. And so what had happened was the Philistine army sent one representative, which was Goliath. And what I read was that he was 6'9", so he wasn't like some of the other giants in the Bible where he was, like 10 feet tall. And we've seen skeletal remains in recent archaeological digs of people who were 10 feet tall. But what I've read recently is that they think that Goliath was about 6'9", and you've got David, who was still a boy, so he was probably still under the age of 13 or right around there, and his dad sends him to the battle lines where his brothers are. And so you've got the Philistines have Goliath, and they say, you send out one representative of the Israelites, and you're going to fight our guy, and whoever wins will be the victor. And that's the way they did it, so you didn't have so many people battling. And so none of the Israelites were willing to go and fight this Philistine. They were all too scared of the whole army. And so David comes up, and he doesn't say out of his power he'll fight the Philistine. He says that God will fight the Philistine through him, and that God has shown him through the past, through killing of the lion and the bear and taking care of these sheep, that he will be the one strengthening, he will be the one in charge of him. And so Saul offers him his armor. So Saul is going along with this, which is shocking to me, but it's something to talk to your students about. So let's go to our two trees when you're talking to your students. So you've got the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Where is the Israelite army? Are they praising God, or are they just worried? They're more just scared, right? So they're not sitting under the tree of life. And then David comes, and his dad sends him some food to give to his brothers, and David is like, look, God has done so much for us. I know that he will show us victory in this as well. Let's just get it done. And so he is just focused on the tree of life. And so Saul says, put on my armor. Now, when you're talking to your class about this, talk about what that looks like. That sometimes people say, put on this when you're supposed to go and do this. Like, do it my way. Do it the way that everyone else has done it. Do it the way that is a textbook way of doing it. But that's not what David was called to do. David didn't want to be weighed down by the heaviness of an older man's armor. He needed to take off that armor that was so heavy and go out and do it the way he was dressed as a shepherd boy. And so keep that in mind. Figure out ways to discuss that with your students, that God will tell you how you're supposed to go out and fight your battles. And it might not be the staid ways of the past. It may be, but it may not be. It may not be the way that God wants you to do it. And so kind of discuss that with your students as well. And then the next thing is that David took stones from a creek. Now, what was interesting, he took just the amount of stones that he was going to have for the rest of the battles in his life. So I just thought that was really cool. And he took one, he put it into a slingshot, and I read what a slingshot was like at that time. And so basically it was like a sack that went around very quickly, and it was the same impact as a modern day gun. So it was extremely powerful and extremely impactful, and it hit Goliath and it killed him instantly. And so the lessons that for your students with the two trees, I want you to go through how God has used some of their life circumstances even now to prepare them, and can they see that as part of the tree of life? How sometimes the hardships, like it must have been terrifying to see a bear and see a lion attacking his sheep, but God used those things to prepare David for in the future. So go through some of those things with your students if they want to share or make up some situations, and see where the students would put it. And then also for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, talk about how it would be good to wear someone else's armor, but that wouldn't have helped David at all. And so that's not, like that I wouldn't put down as the evil category, but kind of keep that, figure out a way to talk to your students about that using the staid old things from the past might not be the way that God is calling them to go. So in your packet, the students are going to take out the fake fur, and they're going to cut a little box of it about that much, and they can make theirs bigger or smaller, but make sure that everyone has enough. So you might want to figure out how many are in your class beforehand and show the children about how much they can have, and then have them sew just a couple of stitches to make a pouch, kind of like that, just maybe 2 stitches here and 2 stitches there. And then they're going to attach the yarn to it in a string, and then they'll be able to go like this. Now, in our class, they're going to be making Goliaths, and then after class, after lunch, then they can fling their marshmallows. But we all know that marshmallows are going to be eaten, and I don't want to get in trouble with Mom for eating too many marshmallows before class. So wait until after they've eaten lunch, or when moms are okay with them getting into those marshmallows, and really talk to them about the number of stones that David got and how those represented each of his main battles in life. Really talk with them about how this young boy was used by God. Talk to them about how his brothers were disrespectful to him. And one of his brothers was quite rude to him and said, "What are you doing here?" And said, "You're just trying to get the glory." And we're kind of mean to him. And so talk to him about how both it's not kind to be mean to people, it's not kind to your family is whom you should be the most supportive of, and your siblings are going to be there for the rest of your life, so it's always better to support your family. And that's super important. So if you can get that point across, that would be super important for your children. And then also that even though he was condemned by his brother, he didn't go and share his drama with his mama. He just kept going forward because he knew that that's what God wanted him to do. So enjoy your slingshots. Don't let anyone get too sugared up on the marshmallows. And just keep in mind the life lessons from David and Goliath. And thank you so much for all of the teaching that you do at Eden Hope Academy, because we truly appreciate you. Thank you.